happened in the sprint
for the Brazilian Grand Prix.
We are live here once again in Denver as we have a show for the P1 Live Delusion Tour on Monday. We are currently settled in a lovely little Airbnb. We've got a little cinema room, haven't we, to enjoy Formula One this weekend, Tommy? And
very cool.
We enjoyed the sprint to some degree. I think it was a chaotic one. It had a few big moments, one for the championship. So quite a bit to talk about, and also a Tommy/Matt rant.
Yes, there was, I think, a little bit frustrating because you always expect Brazil to be an absolute banger and they're overtaking each other every single lap because the expectation is so high. There were some frustrations, but there was also a hell of a amount of controversy as well that we're going to dive into.
We certainly will. Tickets are also available for Dallas, Toronto and Chicago, the other shows that we have coming up. New York, unfortunately for you lot, are sold out. Right, let's get into the sprint action and begin with the biggest moment of all. Liam Lawson, Ollie Bearman. I'm kidding. No. Of course, it has to be Oscar Piastri crashing out of the sprint. A huge moment. Yeah, we talk about sprints. We talk about how they feel quite inconsequential. It's a point here, it's a point there. But it can be massive. We've seen it in Austin, in Max's sort of championship challenge charge, whatever you want to call it, where both of the McLarens were out and he won. That was an 8-point swing. Oscar today crashes out of a slippery, wet Brazilian sprint, and it's an 8-point swing in Lando's favour. It's a massive mistake for Oscar. It's a small mistake in the grand scheme of things, but it has such huge consequences for his title hopes.
It really does, and it feels like more, psychological thing more than anything. Obviously, the points is a disaster. The fact that it is an 8-point swing. Like you say, the points aren't as extreme, but we were talking about the fact that, Piastri, he's had such poor form and looked like he's had no pace. This weekend, he's actually looked an awful lot better. And I think even if he had just finished third, he'd have lost a couple of points, and it wouldn't have been that bad because you'd have basically gone into lost a couple of points, but he's got that momentum and you kind of feel like, okay, he's back in the game. You go into qualifying, he looks like he can challenge Lando now, but you just worry that this could take another, knock of his confidence, especially after what happened in Baku.
For sure. It was definitely a better Oscar Piastri that we saw, not just in qualifying that we reflected on yesterday or sprint quali, but also in the sprint. He was around, as you say, finishing third would be fine. 2-point swing, 3 points behind going into the main race. But instead, it is another confidence knock for him. I guess in some ways we will, well, by the looks of things, it's more than likely that we're going to get a dry rest of the weekend. So the conditions in which he crashed out of, we're probably not going to see again unless we get a random rainstorm and things like that, which could spice up the action. Bad times for Oscar. Question, Mike2346, do you think Oscar can recover this championship? He's been so off since Baku. It's a good question, and I think a lot of Oscar fans out there will be sort of mystified as to how this has gone so badly so quickly, from being so consistent, scoring podiums for fun, and now once again we're talking about another moment for Oscar where it was a mistake. Yes, we also had Colapinto and Hülkenberg crashing on literally the same part of the track. But there were other 17, 16 or however many that were in the race at that time that didn't crash at that moment. So can he recover the championship? It's seeming more and more unlikely as we see more competitive sessions. Yes, he was better in sprint quali, but he was still just under 2/10 behind Lando, which is a big margin around a 1:09 lap. So for me, I really feel as though it is against Oscar now, even more so than I was saying this before the sprint race crash, and now this further sort of just backs up my feelings here.
I'm maybe a bit more optimistic about Oscar, which is rare to be the optimistic one. But I do think it's the points gap. When you look at the points gap, I think his only saving grace here is the fact that it's a 9-point swing. McLaren are looking incredibly dominant, and it's all going to be in a few hours' time how he picks it up in qualifying. Because if he manages to, get pole position or beat Lando in that race, a 7-point swing, it's all level again. It really all does just come down to how he's going to pick himself up after this crash, because he's got it's not like a Max Verstappen situation where it's quite clear now, like, he doesn't have the car and it's a massive points difference. I think that's the key thing here with Oscar. If he can just pick himself up, the problem is he's made a massive error again when he's actually, been on the pace.
We say like if he can pick himself up, but we've been saying this for now 4 race weekends, and the points are disappearing for him in this championship challenge. So I guess what is it, because the fact that the points gap
for me
big?
It's the fact that literally McLaren is so dominant that literally just a 1-2 in Oscar's favour and they're basically level again.
Would you say they're dominant around Brazil though? I mean, you had Kimi Antonelli fighting Lando for the win this time round, so we're talking about quali going into the rest of the weekend. I don't think it's a given that the McLaren are that clear that Oscar can just slot into a P2.
Well, I mean, the fact that I think the conditions played a part, and the tyres, we'll see obviously going into in the rest of it. Lando does look mighty. I'm not saying that Oscar is going to beat Lando. I still think the sure bet is Lando to win the championship. He's looking very comfortable. I'm not here saying that I think Piastri is going to win the championship. I do very much firmly believe it's going to be Lando Norris, and this race only cements it. But I wouldn't write him off. Yeah, Max, on the other hand, he's gone.
Here we go. I love it. You're optimistic about anyone but Max Verstappen, which is absolutely crazy. Next question from P1 Patreon member Anastasia W. Do you think the water splash played a role in the crash, or was it simply a matter of where the drivers went on the curb?
It may have done. I think the way they... I wouldn't say baited us with the radio, but I think Formula One know what they're doing now with how they can play team radio to give context, because I think it was just generally a passing comment from Antonelli of, Lando's kicked up a load of water here, and because 3 drivers have just gone in the wall, it's obviously like they play that and go, that could be a really interesting thing to kind of play. And then obviously with that, it makes it almost... You almost look at it and it feels like it's a Mario Kart. He's dropped a banana peel and a 1,000 IQ move, and he's just taken Piastri out the race. It's not Lando's fault in any stretch. He's just driving his race. He's allowed to do that. He didn't lose the car. And every onboard I've seen of the drivers that have kept on the road other than Lando, they've avoided that curb. But the people that have gone wide, have lost it in a big way. So it's really hard to tell how much, and obviously we've not heard the interviews as of yet.
I think it was a massive coincidence, to be honest with you. I think we were baited by the radio because, of course, we see 3 cars go off, and all of us watching are trying to figure out, well, why has that happened? And, of course, the Kimi Antonelli radio is played about the fact that Lando has kicked up a massive amount of water. And you look at the replay, if anything, I would say it's more, that would maybe have been the cause had the drivers been off the curb, because the water looked like it splashed up and then kind of went onto the racing line, if anything. So I think it's very much a coincidence. The drivers are picking up speed, they're gaining tyre temperature as the laps go on, and the confidence starts to kick in. And of course, I think as well, like, it's a driver's natural instinct to start pushing the limits, start sort of going onto the curb and things like that, although it is the absolute rule number 1 that you don't go on the curbs and the white lines when it's been raining, especially on dry tyres, but they're pushing into the center S's, and I think it's just purely that. We actually saw a camera angle as well of the water pools that were within the sort of serrated curbs. But the thing was, Lando went deeper into the curbs, which actually seemed to work in his favour, whereas just kissing it was the cause of 3 drivers out of the race in a matter of about 30 seconds. Yeah,
it was a mad moment. To see 3 drivers go off at the same time is very rare. I think my initial reaction was like, has it just started raining or something at that turn? Because we've seen that in the past that's caught people out. But yeah, just an insane moment. And unfortunately for, Oscar, that the other two went in the wall. Colapinto, we'll find out later, whether he's going to be all right for qualifying, because he had absolutely enormous damage on his car.
Yeah, very unlikely, I think, from just what we saw. There was definitely one side of the car that was completely ripped off. Next question for P1 Pitch. Remember, Glush. What did you think about the rolling start instead of a standing one? Surely it could have been a standing one. All right, here we go. Here comes the rant. I was up in arms during our watch along. So was Tommy, although Tommy was less surprised by the fact that we had another rolling start. It was a decision, right? It was a decision by the FIA, by the race director, of whether to go for a standing start or a rolling one. I've seen theories floated around. Some make sense, but I also want to still question it. And the biggest one is the fact that, of course, we had a standing start to begin with, but the difference being that we've had a few laps and there's a racing line that's formed on one side of the grid and the other side of the grid is wetter. And perhaps that was a consideration by the race director to not have a standing start due to that fact. What I would say to that is, boo-hoo, that is racing, that's luck of the draw, that's the lottery. It's like, it's a safety car fair, other things fair. Please don't let us talk about fairness again. You know what I'm saying?
There's so many races around the world where we talk about how dirty it is offline. Do you then just do a rolling start every race?
Exactly. So for me, I was really annoyed to see that, and I can understand why so many people jumped on the fact that they were trying to help Lando. I would counteract that and say that had it been a grid standing start, it would have been even more of a benefit to Lando, who was on the racing line, and it would have been drier and he would have had a much better start. Kimi Antonelli, on the other hand, would have probably dropped to behind George Russell. So I think that argument is probably a little bit of a null and void one, to be honest with you. But it was still a shame, because a standing start is the absolute best thing that a Formula One fan enjoys to see. And we can understand, right, when we have changeable conditions, when it's monsoon conditions or really difficult to see, why they would have a standing start. But for this kind of occasion, I just think it was ridiculous. Yeah,
the standing start obviously helped the kind of pack stay in order. You do wonder, that Lando, obviously you're always difficult with the slipstream going down the straight, so he left it very last minute. So in a way, with this dry line theory or whatever, it was probably worse for Lando to have a standing start. But the problem is with the standing start is you want to see a standing start, and I'm pretty sure that they put this in place, that they will almost always go for a standing start when there's a red flag. That's what they're meant to do. And I think the most frustrating thing here is we don't want to turn Formula One into this it's always about entertainment and everything needs to be crazy, because then you get down to a little bit of a dangerous line. But it is so frustrating when they're doing all these things like sprint races and gimmicks to try and make the sport more entertaining. And then yet they're making decisions like this, which makes no sense, because the fans want to see a standing start. It's the most exciting part of a Formula One in general, and is always going to deliver the most action. And you're always going to, people are always going to benefit, or it's just luck of the draw like that. That is just how it works. So it was incredibly, incredibly frustrating to watch, because we wanted to see it.
Now, another theory was the fact that F1 may have had a little bit of a phone call to say, or perhaps a brief prior to the race happening of we can't let this sprint race go on for too long because qualifying is coming up later. And of course, F1 and the scheduling and the broadcasters, that is absolutely the prime thing in their mind of making sure it goes ahead at the right time, because there's a lot of money at stake, etc., which again, as fans, we don't really care about. We just want to see the racing, and we want to see the racing in the best way that it should unfold. And this is the problem with sprint weekends. If that is a sort of consideration from F1 and the race director, that's a negative thing for a sprint weekend if you do have things like this happening. So for me, I'm not a fan of that either.
No, the argument to that is that they, in much worse conditions, they all behaved themselves at the start. So I know there could have been a pile-up, but there could have been a pile-up from the safety car restart, because even that is, the field all gets really bunched up, the cars are really close. We saw Alonso and Verstappen going side by side through corners. That could have been, a moment. So yeah, it's just so frustrating to watch, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And of course, I'm sure we will get clarification. Oh wait, no, we won't.
No, we won't.
Right, next question. P1 Patreon member Lex Wakeman. Ollie Bearman and Liam Lawson incident. Racing incident or not?
I mean, I watched that and I remember thinking, because it cut away, didn't it? We saw Liam Lawson dive down the inside, and then you saw a yellow and you went, oh no, what's happened here? But looking at it back, I think it's a racing incident all day long. Liam Lawson is completely entitled to go for that move. He was always going to go for that move because Ollie Bearman lost huge momentum in battling one of the Saubers, and Liam Lawson, being Liam Lawson, is always going to go for that move. It's a great opportunity. That one's the biggest opportunity to overtake, and he's basically seen his rival in front lose a huge amount of momentum. So he's gone for the inside line. The move was absolutely on, and then they've just come together. I don't blame Lawson one bit, like genuinely, like 0%. Maybe Bearman the tiniest bit of like, should he back out when he's on penalty points and just let the moment go? They're racing drivers, of course. This is a conversation we've had before, but it's not like I blame him massively. And I think a racing incident should be the right thing. I don't actually know if we even ever got the result from that yet.
No, I think
no, I don't think we did. It was just the exclamation marks, the whole race, because apparently it can't be decided during the race.
It's for me as well was a racing incident. I think that they were both entitled to what they did. Lawson went down the inside. Ollie Bearman gave Lawson space, didn't give him like an insane amount of room, didn't run off the road or anything like that. Lawson was in control of his car as well, importantly here. So that is the absolute label of a racing incident, in my opinion. So just hard racing, and unfortunate for Ollie, of course, to lose so much momentum fighting another car. But that is racing. And unless they did get a penalty, which I don't think they did.
And hopefully for Ollie's sake he doesn't, because he's of course on a lot of penalty points.
It would never be Ollie in that situation. It would be Lawson or racing incident, in my opinion. It's not like Ollie closed the door. He was just trying to hang it around the outside of a defensive move. So, no, racing incident for me, for sure. P1 Patreon member Sophie comes in with a question. Do you think Gabby will be able to start his home race? That was a big crash and he'll have to have a repaired car plus be medically cleared. I thought this was going to be a question about qualifying. I think qualifying's a write-off. I think he will absolutely have to start from probably the pit lane. If I'm being completely honest, that is going to be a massive job for Gabby's team to repair for tomorrow, let alone today, I would say. I hope for his sake, of course, that he gets medically cleared. He's looked reasonably strong this weekend. He's been in the mix of the midfield. It was such a massive crash, first and foremost. So happy to see him walk away from an utterly terrifying crash. Crashing into the inside wall of turn one, then spearing across, missing Alex Albon, which, again, is a massive sort of lucky moment for him, and so glad that he didn't go careering into the side of another car. This is Gabby. And then, of course, ending up getting airborne into the next wall on the right-hand side. A huge crash from Gabby. So, yeah, very, very happy to see him walk away. We obviously saw the team radio say, I'm okay. But, yeah, there's going to have to be more medical clearance happen, because if there's like sensors in the car, and if there's more than a certain amount of G-force, then he has to be checked out. So, yeah, as crashes go, so glad to see him walk away. It's testament to F1 safety in 2025. It's an absolute miracle, to be honest with you, that they walk away not injured at all, or at least that, as far as we're aware at this moment.
It's insane. It's a terrifying crash. Can't remember a crash that big in a long time. I think it's the scary thing is the speed. You kind of almost, when you're watching Formula One cars go around so quickly, you don't notice that speed difference, do you? And then when you see one of them go off or like career off, it's such a like shock. And the fact that he got airborne as well made it even more scary. So glad he's all right. It's such a shame that we're potentially going to go into qualifying without the two South American drivers that have obviously got amazing support at this race, being Gabby's home race as well, and obviously Colapinto. So yeah, it's a big shame for Gabby. He went for the move. It was a very optimistic move when there were no points on the line, of course. Interested to hear about it, because it looked like his DRS was still open as he went into that, which caused the incident. But I think the most important thing is that he's okay after that, because that is a really, really scary crash.
For sure, yeah. Talking about the incident, without the the attempted move. His DRS was 100% still open, and in terms of the actual move itself, it was questionable to be going for such a. It was a late move, right? It was a dive bomb. It was an absolute dive bomb into turn one. At the end of a sprint race where the inside line is slightly damp as well. It's a rookie move.
And you have qualifying in like 3 hours.
Yeah, it's a rookie move. It's a rookie error, just completely, right? So that's a shame for Gabby for sure, and I'm sure he'll, in hindsight, wish he hadn't gone for that kind of move. But I guess on the flip side, he's probably feeling quite confident in the car and was running just outside the top 10, I think, at that point. So a massive shame for Gabby, and I really do hope he's able to start tomorrow. Fingers crossed he will be able to. And finally, Joe Formula 6P. Would Kimi have passed Lando if there were more laps?
Yes, but maybe about 50 more laps when Lando's tyres would go off. Given 3, 4, 5 more laps, I don't think it's happening. It was so hard to overtake. Kimi got very close. The DRS wasn't like, slam dunk DRS like we've seen in certain races gone by where you just breeze past them on the straight. It was more just keeping him close, if anything, through the lap. And we saw with Charles Leclerc and Alonso, even when he had that big advantage, how difficult it was to pass. And obviously Leclerc got past Alonso eventually, but it was always going to be difficult for Antonelli to make that move. So to answer the question, obviously Lando's tyres would have gone off eventually because he was on the soft, so in theory you'd think would go off more, and he said he was struggling with the rears. But I don't think adding an extra couple of laps he would have got him. Unfortunately for him, it was just too hard to pass.
Yeah, the pace difference wasn't big enough, and also the track conditions weren't in Kimi's favour to actually make a move. We saw that with Gabby, of course, partly as well with the DRS open, but it's just so difficult to overtake when you have a dry line and anywhere else is slightly slippery and you can't brake as late, of course. So for me, no, I think Kimi would not have got through on Lando, and it was a great effort from Antonelli. We're talking about him potentially winning the sprint, but he did a brilliant job. So quick, as quick as George Russell, managed to hold his teammate back as well during that sprint. There was a couple of attempts that Russell had on Antonelli, but Kimi held strong, and it's a really good result for Antonelli. So yeah, there you go. I mean, Verstappen, we haven't even spoken about him, finished fourth. Of course, he'll be 39 points behind Lando Norris now going into qualifying and the main race. Still 4 races and 1 sprint to go. Still over 100 points remaining, 108 I think, if my math serves me correct. So Tommy, is fully depressed at this point. Max, I haven't really spoken about him at all, but
we just nowhere.
The fact that he was so on the back foot after the safety car restart, by the way, you're almost happy that he's finished fourth.
Yeah, he was just nowhere, had no pace. Didn't look like he could challenge the Mercs, never mind the McLaren. So yeah, it's not looking good for Max at all. I know you say there's 100 odd points left. Obviously, that means he's kind of going to need a big moment again. Like we've seen it with Piastri. Will we see it with Lando? I don't know. He's obviously performing really well at the moment, and it's looking like the pressure isn't getting to Lando. We'll find out that's the case as we go into qualifying, because what's fascinating is to have all these stories of like, is the tyres over? Is this going to happen? But we could go into qualifying now, and if, between these title protagonists, it could completely flip on its head, and that's exactly what we saw last year. So we're about to find out.
It's funny because obviously I'm the optimist on this podcast, and I'm thinking like, okay, right.
If Max, for example,
at some point, Lando has a problem between now and the end of the season, and a big point swing happens. Let's pretend Oscar Piastri is now the championship leader again. Max is 30 points behind Oscar, so gains.
You're not
I know Lando's the favourite.
Yeah,
just let me cook. All right.
No, I do think there is. I'd be a hypocrite if I said that like it's signed, sealed, delivered for Lando Norris, because it's definitely not. It's a small points gap. anything can happen. And exactly, that is exactly why I said said that, because we said then it's not over, and there's even less of a points gap. So you never know what's going to happen in qualifying.
You never know. So there you go. I'm trying to bring some sunshine and rainbows to Tommy's life. But there you go. Right, we will be back literally later on today for the qualifying podcast as well. Whenever this goes live, of course, will be for our watch-alongs for quali as well. So thank you, everybody, for your love and support as always. And we'll see you a little later on. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.